Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a childish episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of The Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. You can follow us on social media, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is at Alan M. Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that. You can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
Also, consider supporting the show by becoming a member of our Patreon, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. And you know what you can do at that facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley, is when we premiere the new episodes of the show. Of course, they go on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. That's Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, all that mess. But you can also watch them in video form on YouTube, as well as when they premiere live on Facebook, right there.
Which is awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
You basically anywhere on the internet you go, other than Pornhub, you can find. And I think we could probably put us on there.
No.
You don't think so?
Yeah, but you on there.
Okay. Well, no. I mean, it doesn't. But it doesn't have to be porn to be on Pornhub. It's just. I'm just saying that for the folks of you that are out at home listening right now, that you frequent such an establishment on the web, you could also find the gold. Forget it. Forget it. Forget I even had any ideas. We will just languish as unknowns here, like we always do.
Yes.
At beautiful Osborne Studio and Sound in Columbia, Tennessee.
Yep. We sure are.
I know. And you know what? I've actually already had a couple of people ask about this guitar back here.
It's not for sale.
Okay,
it's not for sale.
Okay, so depending on how much money you got, it's for sale. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
$1 million.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, actually, Blake, I had somebody ask if the whammy bar here was native to this model, or if that was something you put on.
Ooh.
Do you know?
That's a great question. See, that's my brother-in-law's guitar. I'm gonna have to ask him and get back to you on that.
Well, it's in your studio, so it looks like it's your guitar to me.
I'm willing to bet that that's original to the guitar, because that's such an unusual, it's such an unusual triple humbucker there. Great guitar, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It just hangs on the wall there, because if you try to plug that thing into an amplifier, it'll just blow up,
Okay, you're really not doing a good job of selling the guitar.
Because I don't want to sell that guitar.
I gotta say. Anyway, Blake, have you been by the interstate and seen all the UAW picketers out in front of the GM plant entrances?
Unfortunately, I don't get out enough, but I saw a lot of that on the internet, and I've seen it on TV news and things like that, but my wife saw it the other day, and she couldn't believe it.
Yeah, imagine these people. Like, I know, of course, for those of you listening at home, there's a GM plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee, which is just a few minutes north of us, where we're sitting right now. And, of course, the UAW is on strike again.
Yep.
And, of course, what that means is that every plant, even in little bitty Bumble F places like our community, they've got the picketers out, and they're on the overpass. They're on the overpass above the highway, and they're at the entrances waving their little signs and stuff. But get this though, we actually almost talked about this on an episode a couple of weeks ago, and the only reason we didn't do we ran out of time. But it was actually in our local paper, and they were talking about they go down because let's face it, our local paper has nothing better to talk about than this.
Yeah.
So they go down and they interview these folks, and they're talking about, why is the UAW on strike again? And the answer was, we need fair wages, more job security, and health care.
Okay.
Now, never you mind that GM had to be bailed out not that long ago because their business practices ran them to $1 bajillion in debt.
Jeez.
And never you mind that they're closing plants all over the place and tons of furloughed workers and layoffs and everything else. Never you mind all that. And never you mind again that trade practices, Trump doing all that, winning with his tariffs and everything else, that just pushes companies like a GM to invest more in plants in Mexico or China than it would in the United States. Never you mind all of that. These people think now is a great time to go on strike.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know what to say to that other than these people. Now, keep in mind, these people are getting, they're getting like that strike pay from the union of like $250 a week to tide them over while they're on strike, because they're not getting paid, obviously, by GM while they're on strike.
They got their health insurance cut completely too.
A lot of these people, And I look, I know obviously there's a gap in pay from one person to the next, but a lot of these people are used to making like $1,250 a month, or a week, and now they're only making $250 a week. I don't know how much you know about the economics of Southern Middle Tennessee and how many people fall under the poverty rate in this part of the country, but as a general rule of thumb, the GM workers are doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Comparatively to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
And these stupid SOBs go on strike because they want fair wages and more job security. Now, I'll tell you, the job security thing, basically what it boils down to is they want to know that, well, hey, I'm a good union due paying moron, so I want to know that I can screw in 5 widgets a day instead of this other dude over here who's a temp worker who does 50 a day, and I don't want him to take my job. That's what it really boils down to. And they want to get paid more money. Well, don't we all want to get paid more money?
Sure, we all want to get paid more.
It's so ridiculous. I tell you what, it actually takes all of my strength to not just veer into the intersection and mow half of them down.
Wow.
I got to tell you,
that would hurt your car.
It was actually, I'll tell you what, it was actually, I know, and I drive a Chevrolet too. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah,
anyway, I actually saw in the news that there's already one lady that's suing because apparently she took a wrong turn. It's not a lady that has anything to do with GM. It's just a traveler from out of town, and she got off on the wrong exit off the interstate, and apparently she drove by one of these entrances, and she's claiming that the protesters and picketers damaged her car. Because, the union folks are always so kind and nonviolent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why they would beat the tarnation out of somebody's car. They're trying to protest. I mean,
because they're retarded. That's the answer. But,
oh,
so not only is this lady now suing because she's saying that they damaged her car, but there's actually already been a court injunction because some of the picketers were blocking the entrances and exits to the plant. And a judge has already had to rule in saying, like, okay, if you want to basically put on a ceremonial quitting of your job, that's up to you, but you can't actually block the right of way here, I got to tell you, I really just don't have a lot of patience for these labor movements. I'm going to pull up a couple of articles after our first break that talks a little bit about how whether or not this is doing anything to jumpstart the next labor movement in the United States. We've had a few too many labor movements that got us too many crony unions like the UAW to begin with. So I honestly just have not a shred of patience for all these morons walking around with their UAW shirts and their signs. I really just don't. You know what? The beginning segment of the show is supposed to be a fun segment where we talk about our friends and we advertise some of their sites. And you and I like, hey, Blake, what'd you do today? Oh, I bought some goats. Goat. And now here I am ranting already. We haven't even got to the rant segment of the show yet.
So you're surly this week.
But this was supposed to be a childish episode.
Yeah, it is very childish.
We haven't even gotten to the reason why that is.
No.
This is ridiculous. We better take a commercial break before I have a blood pressure issue. Let's do that. Let's take a commercial break.
Let's do it.
Hey, did you see the playoff games last weekend?
Oh, you're into the sports ball game.
Sports Ball with Mike Meharry and Alan Mosley. SportsBallPodcast.com.
Sports ball is a sports show. It's a sports show done by a couple of libertarians.
For when you need your bread in circuses.
Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. All right, everybody, since we didn't even get around to talking about our friends in the first segment, let's go look at Meme Wars Episode 5, The Other 3% Strikes Back. It's our friends at The Other 3%. You can still find them by searching The Other 3% on Facebook. Did you know that Obama met with that Greta Thunburg in D.C. a few days ago?
Yeah.
So Obama met with her because that's how you know you've made it as a leftist provocateur.
How'd you like to be a fly on that wall?
You have made it if you've met with Obama. And then of course Rollo McFlogo over here says, I wonder if they discussed the impact on climate change of dropping 26,000 bombs in 2016.
Ooh.
I have a feeling no. But I tell you what, I don't have the data here for the episode today because in case you haven't noticed, this is really just more of a rant episode than anything.
I bet that made a lot of smoke.
I'm willing to bet that dropping tens of thousands of bombs is pretty bad for the environment.
I would take that bet. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what the comparative analysis is between a drone strike on some nut farmers that kills 30 innocent people last week versus me starting my Malibu. I don't I don't know.
Starting your Malibu can't be as bad as, wasting a whole oil refinery, but,
I definitely know that it doesn't kill as many innocent Afghani farmers. I know. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, can we really know anything?
No, we can't. It's all lies. It's all lies.
It's all lies.
It's all lies.
It's all lies except for what you hear on this program.
That's right.
Which is the truth as we believed it at the time.
Yes, that's correct.
We should change our tagline of the show to that. Instead of being the gold standard of podcasting, it will be, this was the truth as we believed it at the time.
At the time. Hey, you know what? That's the greatest version of plausible deniability I've ever heard.
I like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, go see the other 3%. Also, check out our friends Nick and Matt over at the Status Quo, which you can find at thestatusquo.net. They just a couple days ago they released episode 44, Fourth Generation Warfare in You. Now this isn't technically talking about hot war. This is talking about culture wars. Mm-hmm. Today we present a shorter episode. Matt shares his thoughts and experiences on the history and present state of the culture wars. That's really been hot in the news lately because everybody's talking about cancel culture, and they're talking about comedians like a Dave Chappelle or a Bill Burr, and they say things that, now keep in mind, when they say something that's controversial, it would have just been normal talk not 5 years ago.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Today it's career ending to be caught saying something like retard, faggy retards, perhaps.
Careful, man, you're going to end your career.
Hold on, let me. Oh no!
God,
my career. I was talking to our friend Mike Mahara the other day because we do the show Sports Ball, and we were talking about some of the money, just different players and the money they make, and people like Antonio Brown, the money he would have made if he just kept his mouth shut, and now the money he's not making because he didn't. And all that really taught us is that when we were deciding what line of work to go into, I'm not saying that NFL quarterback or wide receiver was on the list, but if it was on the list and you picked a libertarian podcast host, you chose wrong. That's all I'm saying. My career. So, and finally, the Liberty memes. So you got a picture of AOC. I prefer the real radical environmentalist. Then you got Greta. I said the real radical environmentalist. Of course, you got old man Ted Kaczynski. Perfection. That's the real radical environmentalist we like here at the Gold Standard.
Just look at the look on their faces, though. Two women look like they're going to kill you, and old Ted looks like he needs a nap.
They're intentionally looking as
murder, kill.
Yeah, I mean, they're staring daggers because they want whoever's taking the picture to know that they mean business. And by the way, I phrased that very deliberately. Mm-hmm. They want the person taking the picture to know that they mean business. Exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I mean, if AOC wasn't just a crazy commie, she'd probably be all right.
I hear she's a good bartender. Not that I go to bars, but.
Are you like a closet alcoholic?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't think I could handle you if you drink.
I don't drink.
Okay.
Don't touch this stuff. It kills me.
Okay. Well, no, hold on. Quit scaring away what little audience we have. I'm positive that a decent percentage of the people that actually watch the show probably drink.
I'm not hurting on them. They can drink all they want.
Oh, whatever. So anyway, I want to actually take a step backwards and go back to the UAW news really quick. So this is actually from the Detroit News. This is an editorial in the Detroit News, and if it's an editorial, I'm looking for who wrote it, but apparently it doesn't say. So, how about that? That's so I wrote this. So this is my editorial in the Detroit News. Yeah, editorial: blame strike on UAW corruption. Ooh, Dems fighting words amongst the labor crowd, and especially in Detroit. So let's read.
Okay.
Striking UAW face losing nearly $1,000 a week, while General Motors Co. has already lost between $50 and $100 million in operating revenue in just the first day of the union strike against the automaker. Is it worth it? The short answer is no. GM put an offer on the table before the late Sunday night walkout that should have either produced a contract or encouraged more negotiations towards one. Instead, 46,000 auto workers are on the picket line, and production at GM plants is at a standstill. And the reason has little to do with what was placed on the bargaining table. Now, this next little part is a very interesting take on the whole thing. Of well, why couldn't they come to an agreement? Why was a walkout necessary? Because I know the layman might be thinking, well, if GM stands to lose $50-100 million a day from a lack of production, then it would behoove them to never let it get this far.
Right.
However, with the obvious caveat being, well, you can't let insane unions like UAW walk all over you either. But listen to this. UAW leaders took their GM members off the job because they lacked the credibility to sell a contract without a walkout. A federal probe into union corruption has so compromised the union officials that members can have no confidence they are bargaining in good faith, unaffected by the bribery and kickback scandals. Already, 10 top UAW officials have been indicted. Gary Jones, the union's president, is under investigation, and a top officer who was indicted last week, Vance Pearson, is still sitting in on contract negotiations. I'm not sure those are the type of folks you want representing you in such important matters as this.
Right.
It's almost as if the UAW is, dare I say, not a fantastic organization. Now let's go. I want to jump down to the bottom of this because we talked about the unions, talk a little bit about GM. Now let's be clear. The cause is not stinginess by General Motors. The automaker, facing uncertain trade policy, I wonder whose fault that is, and a slowing market, still committed itself to a massively expensive contract that would have strengthened the UAW's future with the domestic auto industry. At the end of the contract, the UAW would have had more of its members working for GM, building cars in more U.S. facilities. Now, what that's referencing is a little bit earlier in the article. It talks about how GM had already agreed to invest $7 billion into 10 facilities over 8 states in the United States.
Wow.
That would create 5,400 new jobs. It would spare the Detroit Hamtramck assembly plant from closure and build a new battery plant near the idled Lordstown plant in northern Ohio. Workers would get base wages increases and bonuses, including an $8,000 signing bonus when the contract is ratified. Health insurance benefits would go untouched, and the annual profit-sharing formula would be enhanced. But that wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough for the UAW and its let's face it, morons who buy into that nonsense. So either way, blame the strike almost entirely on UAW corruption and its corruption and its corrosive influence on the bargaining process. Now that's an interesting take right there at the end, because basically what it's saying is that even if you believed, even if you weren't happy with the status quo, and even if you believed the needle could be moved a little bit further towards labor's side of the argument, it still doesn't change the fact that, but if it's the UAW doing the negotiating, if it's the UAW organizing the picketing and whatever, you've poisoned the well, right? Yeah. Like you're knowingly dealing with a corrupt organization. And by the way, the UAW, that corrupt organization, is arguing with General Motors, the same General Motors that, of course, had a buyout, right, has had very poor business practices. We're free market advocates here in the show, so by our standard, there would never have been such a thing as bailouts.
Right.
And if GM could not compete in the market because of poor business practices, GM would go away.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't That doesn't mean that every single one of those plants just goes dark and every single one of those employees never works in that town ever again. What that almost always means for any major company is their assets are going to be sold off at auction or bankruptcy. Other companies are going to come in. The Nissans of the world are going to come in. The Volkswagens, if you will, perhaps they come in. The Toyotas come in. Other companies come in, they pick up those assets, and the ones that are of any use and the employees that have good working capital, they're going to be put back to work. Mm-hmm. And the ones that not are going to go away, or they're going to be sold off, or they're going to be refitted to make something else. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that if the policies that got GM to that place have not changed, then there's no reason for us to believe that GM is going to be in any better shape 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right. 20 years from now, than it was before. And then, of course, finally, the last thing, that part of GM's problem is that it's got these labor issues with a group such as the UAW. And again, we could do a whole month's worth of episodes on labor movements and groups like the UAW, but I know that I have seen talk that, your pro-labor side would say, well, we're really happy about this walkout because we're hoping to spark a new generation's labor movement in the United States. Yeah. I can tell you, I'm not sure how good that labor movement will do you when the crash finally comes, when the dollar's devaluation is complete. Yeah. And the bubble finally bursts on Main Street and Wall Street. I'm pretty sure, the labor unions negotiating you another couple $100 a week plus health insurance won't do you anything when you just don't have a job to go to at all. I don't really know how we got to talking about this today. When I was actually coming over to the studio, this was not on my list of things to discuss because it's not really. It's one of those things where propaganda news such as it is, the corporate press is so eat up with this Greta Thunburg and the whole climate change propaganda debacle that the UAW strike has sort of kind of just been missing. Like, have you sort of gotten that?
Yeah, I have.
I mean, there's been strikes in the past, and normally when the UAW is going harumph for rumph, that's headline news, right? Yeah. It's sort of been gone.
It's kind of like that Forrest Gump meme you've seen going around where he and it's like, and just like that, such and such went away. You know?
Well, what went away is Jeffrey Epstein went away. Remember Kavanaugh had a new accuser, so everyone who wanted Kavanaugh gone was back to the front line. That's all gone.
Gone.
That one actually went faster than it came along. The second round 2 of Kavanaugh disappeared almost instantly.
Well, they couldn't win the first one. Why bother, right?
But to me, Epstein was the bigger story. Like we have a known leader of a massive pedophile ring that involves some of the richest, wealthiest, and most politically powerful people on earth. That's gone.
Didn't you say that was going to happen a few weeks ago?
Of course.
It was just going to be gone. No one's going to care.
The only thing we didn't know at the time is what will take its place. Right. We knew that they would shuffle that under the rug and they would find something else to preach about. We just didn't know what it would be. It could have been a UAW strike, but it wasn't that either. Yeah. In a weird sort of sick way, I feel bad for the UAW because they really need a slow news week so that they're headline news.
Right.
But they're not because of this stupid Swedish girl talking about how we're all going to die in 12 years. And because of that, they're not even in the news. Yeah. I mean that.
Yeah.
It's very strange. So speaking of that, Blake, pull this up. I want you to see how intimidating this little girl is.
She is scary, dude. I'm hiding under a rug. She's going to shoot me.
So first of all, she's a little scary. I'm not going to lie. She's a little scary. So if you've been under a rock and you don't know anything about 16-year-old Greta Thunberg, she just recently was preaching in front of the UN. She's talking to Congress. This is a Swedish high school student, 16 years old, who has sort of become the modern face of, I don't even want to say environmental movement or climate change movement. I really would rather call it the climate alarmist movement because it's just bull. It's just BS, guys. Like, and I'll tell you, I don't want to ramble too much longer today, and we have another commercial break to get to. I really just want to, after the break, I'm going to share a couple of my thoughts, taking a step back from just this whole circus that's going on. Because now you want to talk about headline news. This has been headline news for at least 3 or 4 or 5 days straight.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone has seen the video now of her getting all emotional and teary-eyed and saying, "How dare you? You've stolen my dreams in my childhood." Like something along those lines. And that's all, that's all well and good. Bravo. Quite a performance on her part. Yeah. But to think that that's even remotely correct. Like, I'll share one quick thing before we go to the break. I know that she had like her little list of like 5 nations that she had submitted to the UN as, well, these are the horrible people that are causing all the worst pollutants. Sure. Of course, no surprise, the United States is forefront on that list. Yeah. Germany and France, I think, are on that list. Not sure off the top of my head what the other 2 others were.
I don't think Sweden was on the list.
Oh. But here's the thing, though. Is anyone who actually tracks the data, like, I mean, God forbid we actually look at any real data on what is otherwise a total phony department of science, which is environmental alarmism. If you actually thought that was the way to go, if you actually thought the way to go was to go running to the UN and crying to your international overlords about, well, we have to put some sort of sanctions on these countries that are causing all these pollutants. If you actually thought that was the way to go, then your top 2 targets overwhelmingly would be China and India. Yeah. China and India produce such an overwhelming amount of the world's total pollutants as measured from a national standpoint. Now, I have a problem in of itself right there as of saying, well, I'm going to categorize pollutants by what nation is doing it, because by and large, a lot of the nations aren't really doing it per se, so much as maybe the inhabitants or the businesses or whatever within that nation. And that's a totally separate conversation. But just for the sake of argument, we're going to say it's a national issue. Each nation is doing this deliberately, and they should be punished somehow. Right. China and India far and away are the leading polluters on Earth. Yeah. I mean, I think it's something like the United States. I think, according to their own data, mind you, it's something like 6% of the world's pollutants. France and Germany are like 2-4%, something like that. So, but still, the list that she gave of these big industrialized nations was going to make up somewhere in the area of 10% of the world's total pollutants. And I'm not saying that in a vacuum doesn't seem like a lot. In a vacuum, yeah, that seems like, oh wow, that's a lot of pollution. Perhaps. Yeah. That's a different conversation for another day. But China and India are like 50 and 60%. Sure.
I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an overwhelming amount. Everyone's seen the pictures. Like you see some of the waterways and shores around India where it's just garbage and debris as far as the eye can see. Yeah. You think of China where they don't have, frankly, a good thing that they don't have, but they don't have some of the same type of regulatory concerns that we have in the United States, thanks to our lovely overlords at the EPA. Right. And because of that, because of the Communist Party run rampant trying to inflate their currency and transform their nation, yes, they have accounted for a significant sum of the world's pollution. Now, again, I'm not advocating anything, by the way. I'm not saying that we should have anything to do with China. I'm not saying China should be at the forefront of any type of conversation about this one way or the other. If China is committing some type of pollutant that is harming their neighbors, that's something that should be discussed between them and their neighbors, mind you, not between them, their neighbors, Greta Thunberg, and the United States. Right. No. But it just goes to show you that all of this is just propaganda. Yeah. Because if it was genuine, they would be directing all of their energy either at the activities that would cause the most positive, that move the needle in the direction they want, right, or B, would go after the biggest polluters. But that's not what they're doing.
No.
They're using this as as a political ploy to target people they don't like, to shout down opposition.
Right.
And to, I would dare say, improving the environment. The true handlers now. I mean, the people who are manipulating a little girl like Greta Thunberg, the people who are pulling the strings, I don't think they really care about the environment at all. I think they care about their political interests.
Yeah.
And if their political interests can be advanced by making environmentalism a part of their platform, then they'll make it a part of their platform. But that was again, this is the reason why I don't vote. This is the reason why I don't support political candidates. This is the reason I don't support political parties, including the LP. Because way more often than not, what you find are people that want to put things like environmentalism on their platform because that will get them the support they need to ram forward their political interests.
That's right.
It was never really about the environment. It was about advancing their political interests.
Yeah.
We got to find happier stuff for me to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's hey, but it's the truth of what's going on out there, man. What do you want to do?
What do I want to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I want to go to a commercial break. I don't know.
I knew that.
You know what? We're gonna spend the minute and a half or whatever it is of the commercial break, you and I, thinking of something happy to discuss in our final segment.
Okay,
We've got like 90 seconds to pull this off.
Right,
let's go to
see
a
what you
commercial
do.
break.
Here we go.
Have you ever been talking politics with a friend and told, if you don't like it here, you should just move to Somalia?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the sandy beaches of Mogadishu, Sherry and I bring you Postcards from Somalia, one of the newer products of Little L Productions, where we take on all of the fallacies of the people who say, if you don't like it, you can just get out. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. Now, you know that I do a article each week for Sports Ball called The Sunken Cost Money Pit.
Yes.
Where I do my picks of the week. Now, I'm not saying that I have ever gambled, and I'm not saying that you should gamble, but I'm saying that if you did gamble, you should use these picks, and you would win more than you lost.
Sure.
Not to toot my own horn or anything, but did you know up through, what are we, like week 4 of the football season?
Yeah.
If you had bet $100 on every one of my picks so far this year, you would be ahead by about $800 right now.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that you should do that. I'm just saying you should do that.
Yeah,
That's
you
what I'm saying.
should do that.
But I'll tell you what. One of my picks from last week that I had labeled as my surefire. If you're going to pull a second mortgage out on your house and put it all on black, this is what you should put it on.
Yeah.
It was Tennessee at Florida. In college football. UT blows, by the way.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Everyone knows that, but what people don't understand is that when it comes to gambling, of course, you have your point spreads.
Sure.
And there's a difference between a team sucking and you knowing in your head, well, that team sucks, they'll probably lose. There's a difference between understanding just how bad they suck, and so that you can pick the winner plus
every mysterious little angle in the background of why they suck.
Yeah. So Tennessee was a 14-point underdog, but they ended up losing by like 30. So you would have won. You would have won if you bet Florida. So again, you should have put everything on Florida, and you'd be rich, doubled up today. So you should listen to me. Yeah. The only reason I bring that up is to tie into our little environmental spiel. There is I happened to see some sad UT fans. Of course, we're in Tennessee. I happened to come across some sad UT fans. And of course they're upset because not only did they lose and they suck and it's gonna be a horrible year, but also that they lost that bad to Florida because Florida's a rival of UT. Yeah. And one of them it was my favorite post game comment was, I'm gonna go out here and increase my carbon footprint so we can put Florida underwater. I like that. That was pretty good.
That's a good one.
I like that. That was pretty good. So I don't know if that's really a positive thing to end the show with.
It's funny.
It's positive if you're not in Florida. It's less positive if you're in Florida. So for our viewers in Florida, it was just a joke. For our viewers not in Florida, we're going to put Florida. We're going to do it. What did you do? What did you do?
I had a birthday party for my son last night at bowling alley. It was a lot of fun. Found out I can't bowl for the tarnation.
What, you found out? You mean you didn't already know?
No, I mean, hey, when I was a kid, I could bowl a 200. I thought it was awesome. That probably sucks on a pro level, but for a guy who doesn't bowl, 200 ain't bad, Then I go in there and I try to bowl it. Wow. I mean, seriously, my son had to put the rails up. It's terrible.
Now I'm gonna tell you something.
What?
If I go bowling,
Yes.
and I see an adult with the bumpers up, I think less of them.
Hey, look, I'm not the one that puts the button, all right? I got onto him. I was like, man, what are you putting the bumpers up for? I'm not that bad. Well, turns out I kind of was.
I'm just saying the bumpers are kind of like how you used to go to to go to the mall and they used to have those little kitty space rocket that you put the quarter in and it would rock back and forth. And
yes. I know very
well. Those
well.
are made for children.
Yes.
And if you saw an adult riding that thing, you would cringe. You'd be like, "Oh, it's a weirdo." Dude, that's what I think about people that use the bumpers.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
This bowling alley had this pink plastic dragon that you put a bowling ball on. And then the kid would push the bowling ball down, and it would go roll straight down the aisle and hit a pin or two, right? Well, I have a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old had a higher score with that thing and bumper rails than I did throwing it normal. What do you think about that? I shouldn't bowl. I should just never, ever touch a bowling ball again. No. That's why I don't do sports.
I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but that still doesn't count because the bumpers it's still a handicap.
Hey, look,
it still
they
doesn't
weren't there
count.
the whole time,
This also counts for the handicap kids that use the little thing where you just line it up and you push the ball down.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's the same. No, that's the same thing.
My
I don't care.
killed me with
I
that
don't
thing.
care if you're handicapped. It's still cheating. You can't. That's the same thing as like lining up for the 100 in the Olympics, but you're handicapped, so you just use a golf cart. No. Okay, yeah, you get a pat on the back because look, aren't you brave and stunning? No, you still doesn't count. Call me heartless if you want. It still doesn't count. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Gold Standard with Alan. I had to think about it for a second. I do too many damn shows.
Oh, your brain.
I said damn.
Yes, it's okay, but you didn't kill it. That's illegal. That's not illegal.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's
one of those if words.
They say that on primetime television,
They
so
sure
I think
do.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask Suzanne.
I think it'd be all right.
And if she says no, then
blip it out.
we'll tell her never mind. It was just a hypothetical.
It was an accident.
It's The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley,
Yes.
which you can follow on Facebook, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Which camera am I? There we go.
How about that one or that one or
no,
that
I'm
one?
looking.
Okay.
This
That
is camera
Look at
one.
that one.
Okay,
Yes,
I was
camera one-
looking at that one,
Camera one is being flicky
but
today.
it wasn't
I don't know why.
looking at me.
Okay.
It's
being flicky.
If
today.
it were
I don't
being
know.
run by my FBI tail, it would be looking at me.
Yeah.
But no. Facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is @Alan M. Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that. You can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
Support the show at our Patreon, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, Facebook. We're everywhere. Not Pornhub, though.
No.
We're going to work on that for next week.
Definitely not on there.
Definitely not on there. But guys, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.